We are known as the Jumping University. Okay, so when I started to think about this program and think about this talk, I said, well, let's not just talk about jumping, let's talk about extending. And how do we extend the reach of the university today? Because you know what, as our first speaker this morning kind of highlighted, okay, the day of the traditional university in the West is kind of dead, right? We went through our heydays. Professor LeBlanc pointed out that the tuition fees from 1980 to 2010, I think he was using 1982 to 2012, but I looked at 1980 to 2010, it grew 453%, double the rate of healthcare costs in the United States. Now that's not sustainable. It's just not something we're going to be able to do. We pushed access, right? Access got pushed to deeper and deeper levels of the population. There's a question at which point does that begin to hit something of a ceiling. So the question is what are we going to do in the university structure? Now certainly in the West, I think it's a slow growth industry in the West. Now Western universities, that doesn't mean they don't have a place and they shouldn't play in this, but what we have to do is we have to rethink about our business models. Now as we think about our business and we think about our business models, now I'm a business school professor and I think about extending the reach, I think about, different types of media and different types of communication. And if I were to look at something like the Titanic versus the Grand Metropolitan Opera. Now last week I was on the train in Singapore commuting to work and I was reading an article and they said that the Grand Metropolitan had finally hit an historic point. They had sold their 10 millionth ticket. Now that's reach, that's impact. 10 million people going to see the opera. I saw my very first opera in the Grand Metropolitan. Okay? When was that open? It was opened in 1880. Took them 132 years to sell 10 million tickets. The Titanic, Metropolitan Opera opened in 1880. The Titanic, same day, same page, same article, filmed in 1997, released in November of 1997 for Academy Award season. And with its new 3D release, it's now crossed $2.5 billion. And overall sales, over $9 billion in royalty and sales. Okay, now, again, these are both entertainment media. The question is, how do they get there? What are the things that they're doing? What's different that makes these two very, very different in their reach? If we look at it and we look at universities, the parallels are very, very similar. If I take and I look at a school like Cambridge, and then I look at a new university like the University of Phoenix, now I'm not equating them on many, many levels, but we do still want to ask ourselves a little bit about, what is their background? What do they look like? What do they stand for? If I look at Cambridge, Cambridge is now 804 years old. Okay, it has 18,000 students. The first degree that they ever awarded was with the business school, and it was in the Middle East, that was ever awarded off of its campus came 4 years ago, okay, at the 800-year mark. Okay, classes are taught between 8 in the morning and 9 at night. And I can tell you what, there's less than 1% of them taught after 6 at night. Okay? All right. Now, if we look at Phoenix University, okay, just as a comparison, it's 36 years old. It currently has 320,000 students. Okay? And these students are studying at home 24 hours a day. That's 24 hours a day. Okay? Okay, so how do we extend our reach? Well, we've got some restrictions, right? Or we've got some real challenges that we face in the university. And most of these came up throughout the discussions today. Is that, first of all, intellectual resources tend to be physically bound. Where our faculty are, they are physically bound to those places or locations. Okay, we're often conceptualized as brick and mortar institutions. Okay, there's tradition. There's tradition, there's tradition, there's tradition. And tradition is one of those things that we never seem to be able to escape in our business. Okay, all of these boards, these ratings and reviews and accreditations and certifications and oversight boards, okay, they're wonderful. I know what the mission is, right? We want to make sure that we ensure or that we certify that those who graduate have done certain competencies. But these things also do what? They also stifle the innovation in our field. And our first speaker this morning, I think, Professor LeBlanc did a great job of talking about that and asking whether we're doing the right job in accreditation, okay? Well, he didn't ask it directly. In many ways, that was what was happening. And when I look at, the challenges additionally going forward, government funding. Hey, look, news flash. Every government in the West is broke except Switzerland, okay? So getting government funding, it's going to be a diminishing pie, right? There's going to be more and more fight for those dollars. It's not going to happen. This is why I worry about Western education. That funding source is drying up, right? Mass access is meeting tight budgets, right? So while we're trying to get education across to more and more people, it's running into a tight public budget. And more is going to mean that it's going to have to do what? It's going to fall over on those families or those individual payers to be able to pay for this. And the median income is in the developed countries on a consumer price index is falling. Okay, it's just been falling for the last decade. So I think as we look at it, other things that are going to impinge upon it. The labor force is more fluid and less permanent. Private models are starting to come about, or for-profit models. There's lots and lots of business relationships. All kinds of things are coming into this university picture, which are challenges, right? That the universities are going to have to deal with. Oh boy, I hope there's another slide after this. Okay, so one thing we can be sure of is that change is inevitable. And I think when we start to look at extending the reach of a university, one of the things that we have to do is we have to suspend our notions of time and place. And once we begin to do that, everything becomes possible. And I think, some of the conversations we've had this morning tell us that it's changing, right? The old brick and mortar, the old idea of it all takes place at one place and everybody has to be there at 8 o'clock in the morning because that's when the professor likes to wake up and teach, that's starting to change, right? So the models are beginning to change. So where's the opportunity? Well, worldwide demand is growing, right? And in this place, in this part of the world, it's growing like crazy. Okay, and I look at some of the populations around this part of the globe. I was looking at the number of people the other day, as I have to do a lot of recruiting at my university. I was looking at the number of people engaged in higher education or tertiary education in the Philippines, Indonesia, Vietnam, and Thailand. And guess what? Those 4 countries combined, there's more people in higher education than in China or India. It just shocked me, right, as a number. Right? I always think of India, or I think of China as just these enormous populations. But on 70%, about 68% of the population, there's more people involved in higher education in those 4 countries. Oh, whoop. So where's the opportunity? Okay, it's over here, right? There's tremendous opportunity here. Okay, globally there are 150.6 million people involved in tertiary education, and that's increased 53% since 2000, according to UNESCO. Okay, as you can see, some of these numbers up here that I've put up, the OECD, the number of people with higher education equivalent degrees has increased 4.5% a year since 1998. Okay, the opportunity is that there's a lot of opportunity for us to change the model. If we slip over to the right half of the slide, faculty and physical ideas are often digital. There's no reason why we have to be bound by these universities structures, by the brick and the mortar. Right? What we're finding is ideas are often converted into digital. Look, communication costs today, in the last 30 years, the cost of communicating has reduced by 99+%. Right? We can communicate and we can get across an awful lot more data today than we could 30 years ago. The breadth of communication, right? As our speaker from Derby University was pointing out a little bit earlier, right? The amount of new technology and new mediums to be able to communicate in has increased dramatically. And this allows us to do all kinds of different things. It's not just to distribute it to the students, right? And to be able to reach the students wherever the students want to engage, which is certainly one of those things that has been a predominant speaking point, but it also allows for faculty collaboration on research ideas. It allows for instantaneous and immediate transmission of your ideas around the world. And markets can be activated quickly, easily, right? These are the kinds of things that we can see. So look, what are the silver bullets? Okay, in the interest of time, and I'll move ahead quickly. What are some of the silver bullets out there? Okay, look, if we think about technology, technology has plays in a lot of places. One, it has a play in student delivery. Certainly, it can extend our reach. We can appeal to the multiple senses in which students you want to be engaged. And certainly, there's a new group of students that are very, very, very different than we were when we grew up. Right? My son, I don't know if he's ever been in a library. I know one thing is he doesn't even know how to work the television in our house. Right? Now, when I was a kid, that was rule number one. You learn how to work the TV, right? My son does not know how to turn on the TV in our home. Now, he watches an awful lot of things on the internet, but he doesn't know how to work the television set. It's just not his place. Now, it's changing all of the family dynamics and things like that in homes, but I can tell you, it's a very, very different individual, and he wants to be engaged in a very different way than I do. He wants to be able to stop, rewind, play again. He wants to be able to click onto another link on that topic. It's just a different way, okay? What we're able to do is bring in multiple media, okay? We're being able to bring the world to the classroom and the classroom to the world. And we can do all of this stuff, 24 hours a day. Okay, I'm involved in an online educational activity with another university. And one of the things that I find is when we open up these discussion boards worldwide for these students, I'm amazed at how much they wake up and they look forward to what has happened in the discussion overnight. Okay, when I was in school, never would have had a thought to talk about those things. Today, that's what these students do. This is a Facebook age. They're looking forward to their posts. And what we really have to do at that university is we have to reduce the amount of posting that students can do. Raises the quality of the post, keeps it really, really on topic. Okay, so what else can technology do for us? Well, it's a research bridge. Okay, when I think about the techniques and the ability of what this stuff can do, it can turn development time into real time. Okay, businesses have done this for years. When I was working with Texas Instruments as a consultant, one of the things Texas Instruments was doing was they were saying, okay, look, we could put all of our engineers down in Austin, Texas, and these guys can work on code all day long, okay, but the best we're going to do is get them to work, if we give them Mountain Dew and we give them microwavable foods, we might be able to get 17 or 18 hours a day out of these guys, okay? And if we give them, video games, we might be able to get 19. Okay, but if what we do is we take a group of engineers and we station them in Austin, and they work on code for 8 or 9 hours, and then we ship it over to Penang, and they work on it for 8 or 9 hours, and then they ship it over to Limerick, Ireland, what happens? We can work on code 24 hours a day. Well, this kind of technology is allowing research to go on all around the world. When I went in, I had surgery on my melon a couple of years back. So they had to take something out and take a look at it, make sure it was okay. Well, they did all of the imaging in Houston, Texas, and they sent the images over to Bangalore, India, and that's where they were read. Right? So there's a diagnostician over in Bangalore, India, looking at my brain scans and telling me the same thing that my wife has always told me, I'm crazy. Okay, so specialization can be encouraged and people can live anywhere. The technology is enabling something that we've never been able to do before. Professors like myself, I'm teaching a class in Madrid, okay, and I don't have to set foot in Madrid. And everybody knows, and the students know me and I know them. Okay, and the World Wide Web is equaling a worldwide reputation. So our ability to be able to reach our markets is like something that we've never seen before. So, what are we to do with all of this? Well, I think what we really have to do as universities is we have to think like businesses do. Okay, we have to take some of the chapters or some of the pages from the businesses and ask ourselves, you know, what is it that they do to extend their reach? Okay, look at things like licensing. Look at things like commercialization. How are we going to license, how are we going to commercialize the intellectual property that we produce? We produce a tremendous amount of intellectual property that can be commercialized. It can be licensed. Okay, when I heard the conversation this morning about the university wanting to, having to raise $200 million. Okay, $200 million is a sizable sum of money. But then when I heard Ian speak about the professor Ian at his university who'd come up with Gardasil, okay, I don't know what the amount of that money was, but I worked with the licensing office at Emory University, and I know that in 2006, when I was leaving Emory University, they had produced over $1 billion in that licensing office in medical licensing. Okay? That's a serious amount of money that is going into funding the activities of that university. Okay, so there's all kinds of opportunities for this. Look at alliances. Okay, we're seeing more and more alliances around the world in the educational space, and what we're seeing is franchising, where people are actually beginning to franchise. I'm sorry, that's mine. Where people are actually franchising different institutions to deliver their materials abroad. So whether it's looking for mentors or tutors or out-and-out partners to do the delivery of your materials abroad. If I look at these educational seminars and the executive education space, there's a lot of people that are developing educational materials for coaching, learning, development, and then what they're doing is they're licensing them or franchising them out to other institutions. At the end of the day, though, what we have to get better at as a university, and I think it's been a constant theme throughout everything that people have been talking about today, is that we have to become customer-centric. Okay, we have to know the populations that we serve, and we have to make sure that we deliver on what it is that they need. As our final morning speaker talked about, we want to ensure a study environment that allows people to be able to matriculate, to get through these institutions, to complete. We want to make sure that they have preparation for their studies so that they can deliver in the classroom. They've got the goods to be able to go forward. And what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to work on educational funding, because at the end of the day, right, governments are not going to be stepping in. Governments are not going to be making this easier for students to go forward. It's going to be the sort of place where we're going to have to be very, very good about being able to raise funding or think about creative ways in which students can fund their education. Now, there's a small business school which opened up down in Texas, which has a very, very unique funding mechanism. They're saying it's going to be free, but then what they do is they offer for those students to then donate a certain percentage of their income for the next decade. Okay, a very, very different kind of a funding model. Okay, and the other thing we're going to have to do is we're going to have to have a very solid relationship with governments, because governments are going to be the gatekeepers. They're going to represent a smaller amount of our funding, but they're going to be very, very integral in whether or not we're able to stay in business and be able to operate. And when one looks at trying to open up an educational institution in different nations around the world, you find a myriad of different legislation, a myriad of different laws that one has to navigate through. Some of the things you're going to have to be very, very good at is you're going to have to be very good at crafting immigration policies. I know that, you know, in the post 9/11 environment in the United States, immigration has been a very, very big issue, and it's really put a strain on our ability to recruit some of the students around the world. Also, employment. Very often, when we go through economic cycles, governments will put employment restrictions either on the faculty that we have or the places where our students can go and which of our students can actually actively seek jobs throughout these countries. So, you know, when I look at kind of the future of this, you know, the thing that I have to remember is that the opportunities are boundless, but at the end of the day, change is an imperative, right? I think we're going to have to be changing as institutions going forward. So, with no further ado, let me just open up and ask for any questions.
Thank you very much.